Well, someone has to take notes. Alex understands what the most important thing is right now.
Exactly. That, and I'm 6 months pregnant. I can't be on the roof.
I mean.
Okay, and John was here. Wow. Okay, so Zaylee, are you prepared to type?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Okay, so we should call to order then at 6:03. Perfect. And public comment period about something not on the agenda. I think everyone here wants to discuss agenda items. Is that correct? Perfect. Okay, great. So then we'll move to any additional items to add to our agenda. Anything new? No? Okay, great. And then review and approval of minutes from January 12th. Did anyone look over those minutes? Helen, would you like to?
Yeah.
Okay. Helen would like to approve that. Would like to second that. Nancy would like to second that. All those in favor. Oh, is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the minutes will be approved. Helen firsted and Nancy seconded. That can't be the right term.
Motioned.
Helen moved to approve them, and Nancy seconded the motion. The motion carries. I had no correspondence, I don't think, this month. Nothing comes to mind. Anyone? I didn't see anything. Okay. And then old business brings us to Conservation Commission membership. So I sent out a front porch forum post, and Noelle answered and said that she's interested. So let's, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. I don't know where to look.
This thing will change and move, and then it'll, so like your eyeballs have to be here, but if you look here, it looks like you're looking really high in the air, but then you feel like you're making eye contact.
Right.
So you can't win.
So I'm looking at this. Okay, good.
You can't win.
That's working. You got it. That's right. Right on.
Yeah. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Noelle Rose, and I saw the, that helps.
There, you can look there a little bit.
That, I saw your post on the front porch the other day. Caught my eye because it's right up my alley to what's important to me. A little bit about me. I just moved to Bristol 3 years ago. I bought a house here a year ago, and I love the town. And what I love most about the town is that the people here seem to live with the world, if you will. I lived in New Hampshire for quite a while, and it's just kind of like Boston's backyard over there, and people really just take everything they can get out of the place and don't leave much left, and it used to break my heart. It scares me to think that the world wouldn't be here the way it needs to be for very much longer. So anyways, it's very important to me, these things, and I was just kind of thinking the other day that I'd like to do something to be part of making sure that this town doesn't change, because I was just thinking, like, I don't want it to change, as far as this kind of thing goes. A little bit more, I am the director of operations at Aquavite in Middlebury. Kombucha drinks. We used to have our facility here in Bristol, but have since moved to Middlebury for a bigger operation. So I'm into the health food kind of market and things like that, but I'm really into animal rights, and I play the saxophone, and so I don't know if those two things go together, but I play the sax in the Bristol band,
fun.
and in Midwinds and LC Jazz, just all different things around. But I'm really looking to doing something that means something, and I'd like to just be part of trying to make this place be a good place and keep it that way. So
that sounds great.
That's me.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
Can I get the spelling of your name?
Yep, Noelle, and my last name is Rose.
Great, thank you.
Sure. I don't have any particular experience in doing anything for this. As I was reading through the old notes of things, it seemed like there were a lot of knowledgeable folks doing things, and so I don't know what I can do, but project management, all that stuff is what I do.
I feel like a
so.
lot of people sort of sit through a few meetings, sort of start feeling things out, what projects they might be interested in jumping in on, and then sort of getting involved in whatever capacity you want. Like you can just come to meetings, or you could spearhead a whole thing, whatever you feel like, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm into it, so.
Cool.
Yep.
That's wonderful.
Love to help.
Anything else?
Is the next step that Noel would go and present a letter of, what is it, interest to the select board, and then potentially attend that meeting, as I recall, and then then she could be added on, if that's the process that I recall.
Yeah, so there's a volunteer form. I think they're out front if you want a paper copy, or I think I forwarded one to already. Yeah. So you fill that out and you send it into the town hall, and then they'll put you on the select board docket, or they'll just say, okay, you're in. It seems, depends on how busy the select board is.
Okay.
And then the select board might do the same thing. Let's ask you a few questions like this, and then they'll say like, sounds good usually. I don't think I've ever had them turn anyone down, and then it's in my experience. And then that's it. So formality.
Cool.
So yeah.
Yeah. Great.
And you're free to stay and participate in the meeting, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Thoughts from anyone? To be good?
Yeah, my general comment is that I think your desire, your interest to want to take part. I mean, there's lots of choices, right, within the town. There's the planning commission, there's the energy committee. You chose this one, so we're happy to have your involvement. And I think, you might be surprised that you have a lot to offer, and there's a lot of opportunities. So thank you for coming to see what you can contribute.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Seems like you guys do a lot of stuff that's close to my heart, so I'd love to help.
Cool. Okay, great. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So we look forward to St. Louis Goods. That's wonderful. Okay, then we still have one more open seat. So continue spreading the word. You can spread the word too. And that's how we got Alex. Alex is on the roof, so they came together. So so anyone, I'll do another Front Porch Forum post, I guess. I'll make a note of that so I don't forget. Otherwise I'll definitely forget. So we'll do another Front Porch Forum post, and otherwise we'll just sort of see if we can get anyone else for our last seat. But yeah, thoughts on that? Are we good? We're good. Okay, great. So next order of business then would be the Peace Garden, which would be a discussion led by Phoebe Barish, who is joining us for the meeting. And we all received a copy of the Peace Garden's town annual report that's going into the town report for town meeting day. So we all read that, and that's all we really know about this topic.
So you're probably wondering how I got to you. So I'll just say first how I got to you. When we met, our group meets once a year as a big planning group to sort of plan for the Peace Garden for the year. As many members, we have about 25 people on our Peace Garden committee. And one of the things that has been under discussion for the last couple of years is we are a group of people, all women. Most of us are in our 70s, and we're concerned about the sustainability over time of the Peace Garden, in that we have not attracted any young members. I put posts in Front Porch Forum from time to time, inviting new people that have moved into the community. We have a few new members, a few younger members that, are in like late 30s, 40s, 50s. But the majority of us are in our 70s. We're retired, most of us. And so And what we do in our yearly meeting is we plan for what kind of maintenance needs to be done. Do we need to add any new perennials? What needs to happen? And I think some of you may remember that last year, cut down a crabapple tree that was in the Peace Garden. And that was a very lengthy conversation about should we do that? Should we not do that? And we decided to do that because it was the little crab apples that fall down were getting into the cracks in, and I think I wrote this in, I put out why we made that decision on Front Porch Forum, because it was the little crab apples were compromising the integrity of the brick paths. And so that was a big decision that we made. It was not an easy decision to make at all. But those are the kind of decisions that we make. We try very hard to maintain the integrity of the Peace Garden as it was designed by the students at Bristol Elementary School in the late 1980s. So, and I've been involved with the Peace Garden since that time because I was one of the school administrators at Bristol Elementary and was actually part of the kids working on the original Peace Garden.
Excuse
So
me.
we're concerned over time. And so I met with Meredith McFarland and Alex, who's not here anymore, I guess. I'm not exactly sure where he is, but he was the one, they were the ones that suggested being in touch with the Conservation Commission. I don't really have a solution to this, but thought coming to you and seeing what your ideas might be over time. And I'm not asking for any kind of a decision or solution tonight. I'm just introducing the idea for you all to think about it, talk about it, toss it around, and just to begin the conversation with all of you, because you seemed like the most appropriate group in the town that could help us sustain the Peace Garden. The Peace Garden almost met its demise about 20 years ago. The teachers who had, who were the ones that were the, like the people who worked with the kids to design the Peace Garden, all retired. And there wasn't anybody at the school to pick it up either. And so it kind of limped along for a little while. And about 20 years ago, somebody said to me, in that they knew that I had been part of the original group, and there were a few people in the community who were trying to keep it going, but it was really overgrown, not very attractive. And the select board said, you know, if something doesn't happen, we're taking this down. We're going to bulldoze it over. And so it was at that point then that it got kind of regenerate, you know, there was a resurgence of interest in the community. And it's grown over those 20 years, you know, to this group of about, I don't know, 20 to 30 people. And we have some very active volunteers. We have some volunteers who just come on work days, volunteers who sit in the background, and that's fine. You need all those kind of people for something like this. So I guess what would be helpful would be just if you've all read what I wrote for the town report, and you probably have questions, and I would be so happy to answer those questions for you. Anything about the history or anything about, you know, what we do every year. What would be helpful for you? That's kind of why I'm here tonight. What would be helpful for you to help you be able to have an informed conversation about this over time?
I'm going to jump in here. I have to say that I'm not that aware of this garden, and I didn't see the write-up. I must have missed that, so I apologize. But where's the location? You mentioned it's somehow connected also with the Bristol Elementary School?
It's on the town green. It's, if you know where the play structure is,
Yes.
it's, if you're looking from the street, it's in front of that. And it is, it's designed with 7 sections to it. They're pie shapes, and each section represents a continent of the world. And when the kids designed it, they designed it with plantings that were indigenous to that particular continent. Over time, that's gotten a little bit muddled, but we really try to keep some things in each continent that's indigenous to that continent. And Antarctica, we plant everything that's white in there, kind of as an indication that, you know, nothing grows on Antarctica. There's a big rock there that Peter Heffernan brought many, you know, in the late 1980s with his big bulldozer. He brought it over and placed it in that continent. So the Peace Garden, Jono, I'll just give you like a brief recap, grew out of a project at Bristol Elementary School in the late 1980s with a group of students and a few teachers. There was a rotating art exhibit at that time that was traveling around the world. It was called the Children's Art Exchange. And it was amazing. We had artwork from Russia, from Scandinavia, and then our students added artwork, and it got moved around to different places in the United States and then in the world. And the students were so taken with this that they wanted to do something to commemorate different countries cooperating with each other. And at that time, there were plans for an international peace garden on the mall in Washington, D.C. And that never happened. But our students were interested in contributing to that. And in the end, what happened was they decided, well, why don't we create our own peace garden in Bristol, Vermont? And so they did. You know, we got approval from the select. It was a whole huge, long process in order for this to happen. And landscape designer David Raphael, who passed away a year ago, worked with the students to make their design. And the students' idea was that the Peace Garden would be designed in such a way that people could sit on the edges of each continent and talk to each other. That's what they would like for the different countries and continents to be able to do. And that's exactly what happens now. Exactly what happens. You know, lots of people hang out in the Peace Garden. So Jono, in the spring, I would invite you to go, you know, to the green and just walk through the Peace Garden. It's really quite beautiful.
Well, thank you for the background. I am familiar with seeing it now, especially when there's events, you know, and it's tucked in that corner.
Right.
I just never really knew much about the history of it. So thank you, Phoebe.
You're welcome.
So is the hope that that the Conservation Commission would help make sure that it went forward in time, like over the, you know?
Yes, I mean,
Time
that's kind of the bee that Meredith and Alex put in our bonnet was, okay, so here's a group that works to conserve special areas in Bristol. And this is a very special area in Bristol. You know, if you talk to anybody who went to Bristol Elementary School from the late 1980s, you know, through the early 2000s, every grade level took care of a continent, and kids will, and people remember that.
I was one of those kids.
Oh, you were? Wait a minute. Oh, I do remember. Yes, I do. So you remember, Zelie, taking care of that each year. Yeah. So, to answer your question, yes, that's the thought. I mean, like I said when I started, we don't have anything formed formally to add, to propose a specific request. It's more just putting the idea out to you, to allow you to talk about, well, how would that work? We can certainly down the road write up exactly what happens each year. For the maintenance of the Peace Garden, we plant bulbs in the fall. We plant chrysanthemums, which are supported by the town. We plant annuals in the spring, which are also supported by the town. The town provides us with funds for those two things. We get free mulch from Livingston's. We get manure from different farmers. And that's sort of on a schedule. Every 3 years or so, we put manure we put compost on the Peace Garden. The biggest challenge for us is looking at the structure and kind of assessing over time what needs to be done. So in the last 30 years, what's been replaced is, and some of you may remember this, we called it the front faces of each continent were replaced because those started to break down. And Ted Lilas created, they sort of look like a lip, but they act as a bench on the top of each continent pie shape, except in Asia. Because in Asia, the creeping phlox is so unbelievable in the spring, and it creeps over the lip that we didn't want to put a bench on that one because that would just have destroyed the creeping phlox. So we didn't put a bench on that one. But the railroad ties that are in there, they've held up really well. One of them is cracked, but it's been cracked for a long time and nothing's really happened. But it's really, as you said, Zelie, the going forward and looking at it over time. My word was sustainability. But all of us who are in our 70s in 10, 15, 20 years, we're going to be in our 90s. And although we all like to think that we'd be able to do what we're doing now, and probably we will be, I'm hoping that, but there are no guarantees. So it's prudent for us to talk to you as the most logical organization that could work with us to look at preserving the Peace Garden over time. And what would that look like?
I have a few thoughts.
I think Helen has her hand raised, Jono. Maybe we should.
Oh, go ahead,
recognize
Helen,
her first.
sorry. Oh, I see that. Oh, yeah, that's a good technique.
I volunteer in a preschool
Sorry.
once a week, and the very youngest little boy there is always sitting there going, I'm raising my hand, I'm raising my hand.
Good.
And no one can hear anything else because he's sitting there saying, I'm raising my hand. So I've got my hand up. One question I had, Phoebe, I think you addressed at least partially, is funding.
Yes.
What your sources are you asking that we assist in fundraising, or is the fundraising established and not something that we have to undertake?
Well, I think over time it might be. Our fundraising is very minimal. We get donations from people. We get, there's a lot of in-kind donation. We get our mulch every year from Livingston's. They're very generous. We get like I said, the compost from different farmers who are very generous. We have people who come in and haul stuff away, people who have trucks, people who are, on our committee. In terms of, so we have money in our checking account. We have a checking account. And we keep probably about $300 or $400 in there. If we need to purchase perennials, replace perennials, we replaced that crabapple tree with an azalea this year. And Rockydale Gardens, Ed Burke at Rockydale Gardens helped us to pick out one that he thought would work really well in there. But what we're hoping to do is to have some kind of commemoration during the Harvest Festival, a very low-key commemoration, because our 30th anniversary of when the Peace Garden was dedicated was in 2021. And so of course we couldn't do anything in 2021. So we're hoping to do something during the Harvest Festival, which might be just as simple as having some pictures of different groups of students working on the Peace Garden, the original pictures of the Peace Garden, and, you know, collect some donations in that way. But, you know, people send us checks from time to time. And I put out a request on Front Porch Forum just saying, you know, if you want to honor someone, or it's, you know, it's not terribly formal. I hope that answers your question, Helen.
So is Bristol Elementary School involved at all anymore?
Yes, we have one teacher at Bristol Elementary who's very involved, Andrea Murnane, who teaches second grade. When she taught sixth grade, her students were involved, and then she moved down to second grade, and her students help us in the fall. 2 years ago, they helped us plant a bunch of bulbs in the fall. And this year they helped us plant the chrysanthemums and do some fall cleanup. And then they'll help us in the spring plant the annuals. And it's just, they just love it. They just love it. And kids over time, you know, I'll run into kids and on the green, and one little girl it was a Sunday, and it was her first communion. And she said, Mommy, and I knew her mom from being a student at Bristol Elementary School. And she said, Mommy, come over here. I want you to see my continent. Because that was the continent that she had planted bulbs in that year. So yes, Bristol Elementary is involved in that way. And Andrea, you know, her
Have
kids.
you tried to recruit among the parents of Bristol Elementary kids to take over this?
It's a real hard one, Helen, because you have to have somebody who's going to stay with it over time. You know, there might be a parent that has a student in the school for 3 or 4 years, and then interest wanes. So that's
Right,
why.
but you have a membership of 25 to 30 volunteers.
Yeah.
Who have shown sustained interest. So, I mean, you do not have a second grader at Bristol Elementary, but you're committed to this garden. I'm just wondering how you could generate that kind of interest.
Well, your guess is as good as mine at this point, you know, because we talk it up. You know, I put things on Front Porch Forum. There have been some articles in the Addison Independent, and we have gotten some people in that way, but there isn't anybody who has bubbled to the surface who would be interested in doing, say, what I do. You know, I coordinate everything. You know, the people who are volunteering want to volunteer to take care of a garden. They don't want to do the community outreach or you know, the kind of coordination that I do.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be around forever. You know, we need some people who are going to be able to do that.
Yeah, okay.
Jana?
Let some other people ask a question or make a comment first, since I've already.
Yeah, well, I would like to, I was thinking along the lines that Helen was saying about, you know, maybe a role for maybe the members of the Conservation Commission could be trying to help get the word out, right, to different groups that we're parts of. Maybe we would know people in different places than you've been able to reach. Maybe that would be a place we could think about helping you would be to help sustain your membership through, maybe for Green Up Day, we can pass things out that are like, hey, the Peace Garden may go away if people don't come out and help out, right? And maybe we could do something like that and hand those out with the bags this year or something.
That's a good
Maybe we
idea.
can brainstorm ways that we could help you sustain your membership as opposed to take that on for our commission. Maybe we could think of
Yep.
ways to help you
Okay,
keep going. I don't know, just an idea.
okay.
But we do
So I
Green Up
have a
Day.
few
It's gonna
ideas.
be, the Green Up Day is gonna be May 6th this year. I'd be happy to pass something out at the table if you'd like me to, or with the bags. That would be wonderful. I'd be happy to have those out as a stack of flyers, or we could, pass things out, at the table on the day of as well, if you want. I'd be
Or
happy
if,
to.
or if we end up doing the expo, the Peace Garden could have their own table.
Yeah, that's right. We'll
So
see.
what's the expo?
Well, we did the Grant Day Expo a few years ago, and it was awesome. But we didn't have it because of COVID, and we were thinking about maybe bringing it back, but that's an agenda item for later. But I haven't had a lot of success talking about reviving it this year, so we don't know. We'll talk about that later this meeting. But we do need to move along with our agenda items. So, Jono, what do you want to say about that?
I'll try and kind of move it along. So I wonder if Kristen thinks that this could be germane as we have documents for other parks, the history, the background. I mean, they're pretty comprehensive documents, whether it might make sense that Phoebe, for posterity's sake, pass along some notes that, so it's in the record for the Conservation Commission. I think the general idea of having a presence, some sort of a table at the Harvest Festival and so on to promote, and at Green Up Day, those are great ideas. I know in the conversation I had with Meredith just today, the Boy Scouts, I imagine there's Girl Scout troops that are close by, and then continuing to spread the word and figure out ways that we can sort of cross-pollinate with other groups to be involved. Seems natural, and that it's a what should we call it? It's a garden within a park, right? So the town oversees the green, and yet that's part of the park. So I'm sure between the rec park, the Conservation Commission, and some other groups, there's got to be a way to cobble together some larger help with the needs of maintaining that area.
Well, that's why I'm here tonight, is just to begin the conversation about those things. And we have had a couple of Girl Scout troops working with us over the years.
Great. Well, thanks so much for letting us know a little bit about it. And as I suggested, maybe there's a way to sort of pass on some of your written record, and that we might have a chance to incorporate that with what we have for some of the other documents related to parks. Kristen might be better off speaking to that.
Are we doing a town or a parks plan? What are those called that we've put together for the parks?
Management plan.
Management plans. Are we doing one for the green, or did we decide not to because there wasn't much?
It was mentioned on the list, and it was put at the bottom of the list in terms of priority relative to the other town parks.
Oh.
But to my knowledge, there has not ever been a management plan for the green up until now. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't do
Right.
one. So
Assume that would go in the management plan then when we do.
yeah,
Because it's part of that.
Yep.
I actually think that's what Alex was talking about when I spoke with him last year. Exactly what you're talking about, Nancy, about the management plan of the different parks. So that I think we'd be very interested in talking with you about what that might look like.
Well, Phoebe, it sounds like if you could get us together some text about the history. That would be good, just to make sure that we have that for our files. And, so when we get to the town green management plan, we would have that on hand. That'd be helpful.
So
And
what
then
would,
also,
what would you like beyond what I wrote for the town report? What would you like?
I think the history that you mentioned would be great, as well as some of the history of how the park was, why the impetus for the park, as well as some of the history of management and then the running of the park, or what's it called, a garden itself. Those things would be useful.
Sure. Yep. And when would you like that?
No rush, because we have no current plans to work on the town
Okay.
green plan, but it's one of those things on our 5-year to-do list, 3 years to do this.
Okay.
So,
At your convenience, Phoebe.
All right,
yes.
we can do that.
But then in terms of a more pressing homework assignment, if you could, I can't help but be the educator. So if you could get us something we could turn into a flyer,
Sure.
I'd be happy to print those for you. But if you get me some text, I'm sure we could gussy it up and make it fancy and flashy looking for folks. But or if you had photos of the garden you want to include.
Well,
in
we
said
also
flyer,
have photos of kids working in the garden too.
that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. People love watching kids work,
Yeah,
so-
okay.
The proximity of the garden to the playground, I suspect, particularly in the summer, a lot of parents are
Yeah.
hanging out at the garden while their kids are playing.
They are. Yeah.
There'd be some signage saying, do you like this peace garden? Would you like to work to maintain it? Some kind of recruiting
That's a
for
good idea.
those people.
Yeah, to join a group
Dynamic.
of diverse women, dynamic and diverse women of all ages in town. Like, come, click on this link, kind of thing, right?
I mean,
And
I'm
that's-
thinking
That with some plastic sheets that we just zip tie onto the park.
a negative approach would be to say, this garden is going to die in the near future because
Yeah.
we can't maintain it. A positive one would be, do you love this garden? Would you
Yeah.
like to play a role in maintaining it for future generations?
Okay.
Yeah, so I think signage by the park would be fantastic, right? And I've seen Marita does those book walks, and she just
Right.
like ties them on to the structure, so we could do that. That would be a great step. And then I think, if you could give me just a document with text that you would like on a flyer, I could make it pretty and put in a PDF and hand those out for Green Up Day. I would be totally happy doing that.
So
We can give a
how,
stack to Sharon as well. At the,
so how
the-
comprehensive, you have my Peace Garden report for the town report. Like just pull pieces from that. Is that what you're thinking, Carolyn?
Yeah, and then something with maybe your contact info or whoever, if you have
Okay.
a clerk who you'd prefer to contact, or maybe something about the kind of commitment you're looking for. We do plantings this many times a year. We meet this often. We have fun.
Okay.
It's great for the
Think-
community, whatever, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Think of it as a draft that would be maybe a tri-fold type of brochure.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be, the last one version. It can be continually, between different updated photos. Other people will comment and say, oh boy, we had this other little bit of information. So it's just a starting point to.
Okay.
Yeah, if you give us
Sure.
some starting text, we can put the photos in and,
Great.
use
We're-
some,
None of
make
us,
some fancy looking PowerPoint slide out of that.
none of us are good at that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
We're
I'm
really
happy to
bad.
do that. I'm happy to take that, throw some photos in.
Great. Okay,
and print
good.
them and pass them out for you. That'd be fine.
Okay, great. Yep, we'll work on that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we can do them with the bag pickup in Holly Hall. We can put them in the library, and then I could pass them at the table as well.
Excellent idea. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So then we'll be in touch, and we'll continue talking about this. And thank you for coming and bringing this to our attention.
All right, thank you. And
for all
I'll
the
get you,
work you've done on
I'll
this.
get you that. When would you like that information by for Green Up Day, Carolyn?
Green Up Day is May 6th.
Yep.
So I'll start passing bags out around town to the various entities and schools. The school I'll be sending bags to as well through Andrea Murnay, which is funny. It's the same woman. So I would say it would have to be in April. So how
Okay.
about within the next 2 months? So I would
Okay.
have time to work on it.
All
How's
right.
that?
Yep. Okay, so let's say by mid-April.
That's at the latest.
Okay, well, we'll
Like
say
how
by,
about mid-March?
okay, by mid-March. Okay, that
Yeah,
sounds
then
good.
we'll have time to edit it and talk about it.
Yep, okay, good. All right. Okay, we'll work on that. Thank you so much
Great.
for having me tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming and thank you for all the work you put in. It's a beautiful spot. And we'll see if we can help you get your membership increased.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks. All right, so the next item on the agenda is updating wildlife maps. I know there's that thing. Yeah. Sorry. The room's falling apart here on us. Okay, so updating wildlife maps. Status of proposed collaboration with Middlebury and the tracking connection. Kristen, were you able to reach out to the tracking connection? Oh, you're muted. And I have to make a note that I just offered to do something. So I gotta type that in.
Okay. So yes, reached out to Sophie and communicated to her what we had voted on at the last meeting, which was to authorize her to proceed with the first of the tasks that were in her cost estimate, and to spend up to a maximum of 225, which is what we have in our operating budget. And so she replied that she could get going on that in the second week of February, so that should be any time now. And she suggested as well that it might be worthwhile for her to spend one of those 4 to 5 hours to meet with Lauren in particular, Lauren Gemry, who is the student from Middlebury College, just to discuss some ideas and hand off materials to her. And then, and also to help her think about the potential tasks that might be useful to accomplish in the senior seminar, that the class for next spring. Let's see. She also said, understanding your limited budget and where you might maximize value out of the tasks I proposed, I would strongly suggest considering task 2A, which was field verification of mapped corridors and road crossings, to be scheduled as soon as possible. If given the go-ahead for this winter, I would aim to schedule a weekday in late February or March with good snow cover so that I could concurrently survey for track and sign while looking at land cover and potential barriers or funnels of wildlife movement. And it could be valuable for Lauren to join this field day as a part of her semester's work. Form locations of more detailed study for spring of 2024. So,
And how much was she asking, was she charging for 2A?
I would have to go back and find the cost estimate to know that. Almost there.
Thanks for doing that. I mean, I'm sure we could all look it up, but
Yeah.
2A was one field day and mileage for a total of $345.
Just to catch you up.
Mhm.
So we have pretty outdated wildlife maps for a town.
Okay.
So we're thinking, let's update those. We have a student at Middlebury College and a professor of mammalogy who said they would be happy to start working and helping with that. There's also a woman, Sophie, at the Tracking Connection, who we were thinking about hiring as a consultant to help with the project. And so we were thinking, well, this could work out really well if the Tracking Connection could help the student launch sort of a preliminary project this spring. we decide to spend $225 of our operating budget. Our operating budget is $300 for the year, and $50 of it goes to the Vermont Association of Conservation Commissions. So that's as much money as we have to spend on this without getting approval for other funds or fundraising or getting a grant.
Okay.
So although that sounds
Gotcha.
amazing, my question is where we get that money from, and damn it, which isn't a question, but how I'm feeling. So, so yeah, I don't know. That sounds great, but I don't know how we're gonna do that with the select board being hard to contact. If she wants to get out with the fresh snow, I don't know how we can do it in a timely manner.
But Alexis and her student and me and any other semi-trained biologist can use our wildlife map that currently exists, show where the corridors seem to exist, go look for tracks, go look for sign. I mean, I'm happy to tromp around in the woods.
Yeah.
I don't know that we need to hire someone to do that.
Yeah, I think that we should, I mean, I'm really excited that she wrote back and said that she can help out with the first 4 to 5 hour tasks. That sounds great. And although I would love to get moving on that, you're right, Helen, if you want to work with Alexis and our students and do that, that'd be great too. So that would be a way to save, because we don't have the money for that. That would be a great solution.
What are your thoughts, Kristen?
There are small grants that can be turned around pretty quickly from Neat Repeats in Middlebury, and I haven't explored that much. I know we've used them with our River Watch group before. The advantage is that there's not a lot of lead time. You don't have to provide a whole lot of detail. If they find that it's compelling enough, then they decide to fund it, then you can have those funds pretty quickly. So that's
It's a month turnaround, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's one possible source of some small dollars like that.
That would be cool.
The other option is we could request of the select board that we want to spend some conservation reserve fund dollars toward that task. It would require getting on the agenda for a select board meeting, making the pitch, and for them to approve of spending those funds. I think if we were going to go through that effort, we would want to ask for funding for more tasks. So
Yeah.
But I promote the idea that we consider the first option to apply to the Neat Repeats, because depending on their cycle, we might hit it, just pretty close. And I'm pretty sure it is a month turnaround. I can't remember some kind of thing for that. And then, as Kristen points out, as we go further down the road, we are likely to see, as the scope expands, needing to involve more money. And I think Helen's offer to try to, maybe do as much as we might be able to do in-house, that's wonderful. I just don't know. It seems like we should involve Sophie in the early stages, and maybe, some of that can be more remote and not as much on the ground.
Or talk to Alexis and see when she and her students want to start getting involved. Because I could imagine that would be a 2-week lab component this spring in a course where they're going with a map and looking for sign of animal activity.
Yeah, I think this semester only Lauren is working on this. There's no other opportunity for her students to work on it. But certainly I think that Helen, especially if you would want to get involved with that, that would be helpful. And honestly, if we could do a Neat Repeat and get Sophie, and we got a team that Helen is on so that you can learn how to do it too, right? That would be really good, I think, to have, like, if you and Lauren both went, and Alexis or anyone else that wanted, if Sophie was okay with that, that would be a really nice way to get some training and also just sort of see what's happening. That could be a really nice option. Also, I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but I want to throw it out there in terms of funding. We do have the Edith Stock Trust Fund that doesn't have strings on it, although we have said we want to do it for Sycamore and for birds. There's certainly wildlife at Sycamore, and crossings, etc., which would be, as far as I understand, a fund that we could access. Now, I don't know if it's a good idea. I just want to throw it out there. Technically, we do have that money as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I mean,
That's fabulous
anything
that you
we do for
remembered
wildlife
that.
crossings or wildlife mapping in general is going to benefit birds if we're protecting wildlife areas.
Mhm.
I don't want to set like a precedent of using that money either, but I think we have to think about it.
I think it was fairly open-ended when George said, yes, it initially was more about the birds, but he didn't seem to feel we were limited. Kristen might remember a little bit more the verbiage on that. But I think if we go forward, having Sophie involved right from the start is important. We have the either stock fund to make sure we can cover the full amount. We could potentially not be as urgent about pursuing the neat repeats grant, and then see where we are in the next stage, and larger funding and approaching the select board, or using for the conservation funds request. So yeah, I think that sounds like a good plan.
I hate to set a precedent where we use bits of it and then it's gone, right? So I don't know if that's a good idea or not. But as I said, I want to throw it out there as an option. There's also the option, of course, to tell Sophie, let's do it while the snow is on the ground, and we can pay her with either stock if neat repeats or another grant doesn't come through. Right? We could still try to fundraise that money and use either stock as a backup.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Well, for
I
as
don't know what's
long
best.
as I've been on the committee, we've talked about that Edith stock money and we have not spent it. So
But
this,
we are talking about maybe spending it for the no mow, because that
but
would
very
be
little
different.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think that there's a very high value of involving Sophie right from the start, and I think it's money well spent. I'm a pretty frugal person, so for me to jump in and say that, I just think it would be a good way to get started, and it's not a huge expenditure. So I think we see where we are positioned from that point on. Yeah.
So John, you're talking about authorizing task 2A for the $345?
Yeah, we've already committed $225, if I understand. So she's at $325. So it's an additional $100 thereabouts.
No, it's an additional
That'd be both.
325.
An additional 345.
So it'll be.
It's
600.
above and beyond the 220.
It'd be a
I didn't
whole
understand
other
that.
task. So she would
Okay.
still do the part with setting up some of finding the records, finding what's happened already, sort of thinking of some first steps, looping Lauren into that, helping her get started there, and then as a separate new money task, do this field day.
And I
that would be
will add the caveat that I'm very willing to be involved in this, but with a new grandchild in Massachusetts, if it snows on a perfect day and I'm in Massachusetts, I'm not likely to run back to meet with Sophie to be trained by her. So I'm willing, but we'll see how able.
Yeah. Congratulations, by the way. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kristen, what are your thoughts? Yeah.
Should we take a vote on or entertain a motion to spend $345 on task 2A to authorize? So
Yeah. Before we have a motion, would you be interested in just contributing to the discussion at all? Since we really value your opinion. I was wondering what you think. Or do you want to just save that for voting?
Yeah, I mean, we can there's discussion after the motions. So if someone wants to put a motion and second it, and then we can discuss, and I'll supply my thoughts.
Okay.
I'll put a motion forth.
Okay, John, what was your motion that you would like to make?
So that we have $225 already approved, that we continue above and beyond that to to add to the 2A part of Sophie's recommended course of
us-
action of the 300 and
45,
325,
340.
345. Okay, so for a total of, what is that, 570?
Well, I think we
Well-
already had a motion on the 225 and that's done business.
The
So
225 is already coming from our operating budget. This would be drawing from a different fund. Or if we were interested in still grant writing and trying to raise it other ways, that'd be allowed too.
Well, to continue with the motion that we take the 345 and use funds from the Edith Stock Trust to cover that.
and
Okay.
authorize Sophie for task 2A, sounds like.
Yes.
You'd like to authorize over to a, Zayla, you got something coherent over there?
I think so.
Right. Do you want to read it back to us?
Yeah, well, I'll go back and edit it later too, but to add $345 to the amount we are paying Sophie, to authorize her to go forward with 2A and take that money from the Edith Stock Trust.
And there'll be 2A from her,
From her.
Proposal.
from what's the name of that document?
It's she just calls it Wildlife Tracking Service Estimate,
Great,
dated October 3rd, 2022.
thank you. Great, so that was the motion. Does anyone want to second that motion? Helen Young would like to second that motion. Would anyone like to discuss the motion?
Any discussion? Yeah, I think it's a reasonable idea, and we have had a lot of discussions about the Edith Stock funds, and there haven't necessarily been needs or uses for those funds that have risen to the top of the pile. So I think for a small amount of 345, it's reasonable to consider spending Edith Stock dollars for wildlife habitat, which will also benefit birds. We wouldn't want to spend all of it on wildlife, but because we're in this time crunch where ideally we would get her authorized and out there on the ground within the next month, otherwise we lose a year possibly. So,
I like the idea that it's gotta be within what we've saved by John and Helen going out and pruning those trees for us.
yeah, that's a true point. Yeah, I'm sure we would have spent more than 345 on pruning. Possibly.
Yeah.
I have a question to ask that's kind of more basic. The fact that we are updating our wildlife corridor, is that being requested by the town that we do this, or are we just saying, hey, we should update this?
We're excited about it. We have been charged to do many things according to the goals of the last town report. This wasn't specifically mentioned, but is well within that range of things that they requested of us. And I talked to Valerie about it, and she got very excited that it was a good idea, unofficially.
Right. But if the town wants us to do that, then maybe the town will pay for the.
It wasn't the town's initiative, it was our initiative.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spurred by our response to some citizens who brought it to us as a concern, so.
Got it.
Yeah. I love that energy though, but yeah. Any other discussion on the motion that Jana has made? Okay, in that case, I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then the motion, all those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So we will be approving the additional funds. Kristen, would you mind being the point person to contact her? Maybe also include Helen and Alexis and Lauren if we have her email. on that to make sure that conversation happens. Like you said, we're on a time crunch. So it'd be great if we could move that to make sure everyone gets those emails.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have Lauren's email, but I'm sure Alexis can forward it to her.
Yeah.
Cool.
That'd be great. Thank you for your help with that. Another just note, I was contacted by an Addy Indy reporter to cover this story of the wildlife maps and our collaboration with Millbrae College. And I said that so far we haven't done a lot, and to please contact us again in a couple months so we can reach out, or they'll reach back out to us to talk about that and do an article. And I thought maybe we could time that in such a way that it could be a way to help connect with community members as well. So maybe we can have a survey ready by then or something. So I told Alexis about that today. And so that's on the radar for Lauren, then day one that she knows a reporter may be doing something, and it could be a really good time to connect with the community if anything happens.
Nice.
So that'd be nice. Anything else I want to talk about with that, or just open discussion? I have listed open discussion for CB on our agenda. Anyone have open discussion on this topic, or are we done with wildlife today? We're done with wildlife.
I can see using that article if it ever comes out, and then some further expenses being needed down the road, and submitting that article to Neat Repeats, and it's a slam dunk from there.
Nice idea. Okay, so let's see. So the next thing is park updates. Last several months we've had Freddie join us. He doesn't seem to be here tonight. So does anyone have an update they would like to make about any of the parks, or should we table this for tonight? Okay, we can table it.
I was just gonna
Kristen,
mention,
you got some?
I was just gonna mention we should probably put on our calendar, start to think about like cleanup activities at Eagle Park and possibly Sycamore. Doesn't seem like it, but it's going to be here before we know it. Yeah.
I can dovetail into that conversation when we get to No Mo May, because I have some ideas there that are coming through from Meredith.
Yeah, and I think we've often done the Eagle Park on Green Up Day, which is fine if we have enough people to spare to sort of cover both. But I get kind of lonely when everyone goes to Eagle Park without me and I'm stuck by my table. So I just want to put a plug in that it's not Green Up Day this year.
And I would propose that too, because I always clean up and I don't really want to do both on one day.
Yeah. But we do usually around that time of year for Eagle Park.
Fun.
So.
Is there any pruning needed at Sycamore Park this year, or does that wait at least a year?
For the apple trees?
Yeah.
I can answer that. Technically speaking, there's branching that's called water spouts. They are the ones that go pretty much vertically upward. Think of it as an analogy of, say, a tomato plant that has suckers. Those are the branches that don't really bear fruit. They take a lot of energy from the plant. Similarly, in apple trees, you want to cut those, leave more of the lateral sort of draping branches that have the spurs, and that's where the tree fruits. So yeah, every year those water spouts should be cut.
But that is not a large job on those trees.
Right, and it ideally should be done during the month of January, February on a nice day, and we have some nice days coming up. March can be a little bit late, but I think Ellen and I might have been out there in March because I think that's just what we decided last year.
Great, then we should probably, if people want to do this, we should pick a day now because it'll be a month later, right?
And next week, actually, I think it's going to warm up in the 40s. That could be fairly comfortable, and is, assuming that the traction doesn't get icy and it's manageable to get down there. I could probably handle that with my schedule.
It depends on the day. Yeah.
I could join with clippers. I'd have a 3-year-old in tow, but he can.
I'll bring another 3-year-old to entertain your 3-year-old.
Perfect. Perfect.
Well,
They can play around.
I have so one thought that it comes to mind is that there's one, two, or three of us up on ladders doing the pruning. And then those branches fall to the ground, and with little kids and moms scooping those up and then moving them off to the side on the perimeter. It's pretty light work, and many hands make that light work even lighter.
Great, so maybe Jono, would you be okay with being in charge of maybe sending an email out and says, hey, these are the 2 days, 3 days that I'm thinking of doing it, who can come what day, and we can start doing an email conversation to do a final plan for that? Would that be something you could spearhead?
I will, and just for starters, any days that work better than others for next week? Generally, as just a quick survey.
Any day's fine.
Pretty much any day can work. Thursday
Okay,
mornings I can't, but other than that.
I'll take a look at the weather, and we're a few days out, and weather can change, but I'll try and chart a course.
Cool. That'll be great. Good timing to have the conversation. So we have that coming up. Then we'll think about an Eagle Park work day for May usually. And then do we want to do a Sycamore work day for that pollinator garden as well sometime around May? I think we did June last year. Maybe we should sort of plan to have calendars, and we'll do the Eagle Park and the Sycamore Park workday scheduling next meeting for our March meeting. Would that be all right? Oh, it's the annual meeting next meeting, isn't it? I should put that on so we don't forget for the next agenda. Awesome.
When you say annual meeting, what did you mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
The annual meeting is where we have to vote on who does what for the next year.
Oh,
And I think everyone has to say if your term is up, if you're gonna continue. It's a formality mostly, but we
Right.
have to do it, and we've forgotten a few times. And it's like April, May, and we're like, we never did it.
so that's generally sort of timed basically with our next meeting being around town meeting in the start of March.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's the March meeting is supposed to be the annual meeting.
Uh-huh.
So I just have to put in the schedule to remember to do it, because I forget it like every year. This is the annual tradition of forgetting the annual meeting. Okay, so I have that on the calendar. So next time we'll schedule those work days, and for Eagle and Sycamore. And then is there anything else we need to schedule at that meeting? Okay, we'll call that good. So just have a calendar with you and open mind about what your early spring, I guess, early summer looks like. Okay, is that all we have to talk about? Parks updates? And there are parks updates? Anything with Eagle with the platform? John, oh, by the way, I don't know if I ever mentioned to you, that ramp that you made may not be up to code, but it is gorgeous. Like, that's amazing. Thank you for doing that.
Oh,
I never told you. I've been loving your ramp though. Thank you.
I'm so glad that worked out. And we got lucky that it hasn't eroded, because we haven't had any drastic flooding events, or it's, we'll just see that it hangs in there as long as it can.
Until we get a permanent solution in.
Is there an update for the platform repair?
There is, the construction documents are being prepared so that it will go out for bid. So that's a hopeful sign that construction will happen this summer.
Oh, good.
Awesome. Okay, let's move on. Is there any other discussion on the parks? Seeing no discussion, we'll move on to mowing. Continued discussion of no mow May possibilities. There was an email from Meredith that I sent to Helen and Jono. I believe Jono also talked to Meredith. So I would love to hear your updates.
Sure. Should I jump in?
Sure. Yeah, oh, you were Helen, whatever.
So I got a call back from Meredith, and I have some preliminary information. They have a 5-foot brush hog that would probably be behind a pretty good, size tractor. It's $250 to do the perimeter. That was one of the options that we discussed, the perimeter of the park. It wasn't completely detailed as to the exact spots that would be covered, but it was generally sort of presented as the perimeter. Regular mowing is $140 and happens about 12 times a year. So when I looked at the calendar, it's on average about twice a month, a little less so maybe when it's dry, a little more so in the spring and possibly in the fall. So in May, apparently they often get calls to the town clerk and so on, like, hey, what's going on with the mowing? And so Meredith's impression is that that park is used quite a bit, and particularly early in the season. So she's a little bit, wondering how well that would work. But let's imagine that we went that direction. According to Scenic View, which is the contractor of the landscaping company that does that work, they would let the grass grow. They said it could be as high as 3 feet. I doubt that. I think that's a little bit high. They'd have to brush hog at the sometime, at the start of June. So now you have all of this, it's like it's hay. And then they'd have to go ahead and deal with the hay, and then they would need to do a regular mowing directly right after that. So I'm not so sure I think that is accurate. That might be a little bit overblown, but that's what she got from Scenic View, the landscapers. So from there, one of the things that Meredith mentioned was that she thought maybe we could consider doing No Mow May up at Eagle Park, because she said it's a little less visited, maybe particularly that time of year. If you think about it, it's at altitude, so the grass isn't going to grow there as quickly anyway. Maybe it's behind by about 10 days or so. So that was her thought. And I, said I'd mention that to the group. And then as far as Sycamore, she felt one of the things that's probably maybe more urgent, because people like to access the river, and we all know about the Japanese knotweed that grows in and just sort of creates this canopy tunnel if it's left unmanaged. So that could be a good use of taking the 5-foot brush hog, going ahead and taking one pass from the entrance of the park on that particular section, going all the way to the river, and then coming back and then hitting another 5 feet. So maybe it's not a full 10 feet. Maybe it's, sort of 8 or 9 on average, because there's going to be some overlap there. But she thought that might be really worthwhile use initially for extra funds towards the park, beyond just the regular mowing. She also felt that we should be able to try and get some help from a cleanup day in preceding that, to just make sure if they were going through there with a brush hog, that we get branches out of the way, maybe some small saplings and so on. I know I was down there at least maybe a year ago and cutting back a lot of that stuff. So I don't think it's that severe, and it's a good time to do it. But over the spring break, which is April 24th to the 28th, she thought that we could probably get some help from some of the Boy Scouts, and maybe plan a work day in there to just clear that section, so it's ready for the brush hog to go through and make a pass down and then a pass back. So that was the conversation with Meredith, and I feel as though we shouldn't give up on the idea of Sycamore Park and No Mow May. I just think it's a step process, and her idea of doing it with Eagle Park might be an interesting way to sort of
Our toes
launch it.
Yeah.
And then we'll see from there. Maybe we've thought it through a little bit further, and she was going to come back and get an estimate for what the brush hogging would be specifically to go out to the river and back, because she didn't have that. She just had sort of that perimeter brush hogging and the comparison of. So if you think about it, if it's $140 times 2, that's $280 to do the 2 mowings. The one brush hogging of the perimeter is $250. So it seems to me we theoretically should be saving some money there. However, that doesn't include the follow-up of dealing with all the grass clippings and then that immediate, next mowing. So it's a little inconclusive there, but in an email with Helen, just as we were trying to find out some information, I think it seems like, and Helen chime in, that it might be good to keep thinking this through, because I think it's worthwhile doing. It's just so hard. I think we need some more information and discussion before we can really be decided on it for Sycamore Park. That's it.
Well, thank you for
You're
that
welcome.
report. Comments or discussion?
Yeah, I think Meredith and maybe the landscaping company is being either optimistic or pessimistic, depending on what you think is driving them. I don't think that by early June, the grass will be 3 feet tall and require a brush hog. I mean, I've been doing no mow May for years on my property, and it's not that tall. It's not that big a deal. But I guess it depends on the year. If it's a very warm, wet spring, you might get a lot more growth. I feel as though this is an opportunity. This is an educational opportunity for the community to learn about efforts that they can make on their own property that have important consequences. Mowing a lawn twice a week for the entire summer demonstrates nothing other than we don't care about climate change. We don't care about fossil fuels. We don't care about anything except keeping a short grass. And I don't think that that's really what our message should be, that we should be more about conservation. That is in our name. And I didn't ever think that the Bristol Conservation Commission meant, let's make sure all the grass is mowed. So I mean, you can tell I'm pretty opinionated about this. So I would just argue that we try this and we put out signs, and we, Meredith volunteered to do some research on No Mow May, and I said I'd help her. And there's a national movement to get people to think about the way that they are treating the land that they own, quote unquote own. And let's just get people to be a bit more conscious of consequences of their actions. So I would propose trying it at Sycamore Park, putting up signs, telling them what we're doing and why we're doing it. Hey, you can do this too. I mean, this is one of the least, this requires almost no intellectual development. It's just saying, don't mow your lawn for a month. I worked with Middlebury College to get them to have no mow zones throughout the college. And these were no mow zones. It's not no mow May, but they were areas that were dedicated to be more wild, so that more native flowering species can exist there. So there's more biodiversity, there's more birds, there's more everything. And the landscape manager really liked that idea, and he ran with that and demonstrated how much money they saved by not mowing all of that land, weekly, as well as climate change consequences of not mowing.
I have a question. So when we're to Sycamore Park, we talked about no mow May, but we also were talking about kind of what Helen was talking about as long-term, right? Am I remembering that
Yeah,
correctly?
and I think, yeah,
Because the Meredith kind of mentioned that people still use Sycamore Park to play on the grass, the green space, which, so then obviously it does need to be shorter and things for all of that. So I think going along with that idea, what you did is maybe if we go out and find sections of the parks that we don't mow and do it kind of like you were suggesting, do sections of it so that the park can still have its green space to be, kids can play or whatever they do. And they can use that for that. And then we are still having the conservation part as well at parts that maybe aren't as used, that don't need to be mowed because no one uses that space over here. They're over here
right.
as kind of a compromise to extend past May.
Nancy, I think you really captured it. In my opinion, it's on a spectrum. The one extreme would be the way it happens at Otter View Park, where they just have a mowed path around the perimeter. A lot of people use the boardwalk to go down to the creek. They might walk the perimeter, and then it's cut, if I'm not mistaken, only once a year at the end of the year. So that's the one side. The other side is we just mow it and do things as we've always done it. But I think the idea of signage, that just as Nancy's pointing out, because there is that section towards the river that's smaller. It's not as open and doesn't lend itself to, games and frisbee and whatever else. We could do that. I think that's the right approach. And then, but the other part is when people feel like they have whatever they have and then something's potentially taken away, that's when they get really upset. So we have to be way out in front of this, which is, pasting it as many places as we can to say what we're doing. We're going to get, probably some pushback, and then signage for those sections. And then theoretically, some of the cost should drop off too, if they're not doing this section and that section, but they're cutting the larger section, then we shouldn't be paying the full $140. It should be maybe $115. I don't know. But I think that's the step process which I've been promoting is, we don't do it all at once. You have to kind of ease people into things sometimes. And I think that's great, Nancy, that the way you've described it is take some sections. And I just think it's going to be really incumbent upon us to make sure that we communicate it as best we can, because then we have the backdrop of saying, well, we put it out there in Front Porch Forum, we have signage, we did this, we did that, it's on the kiosk. We've done as much as we can. We're so sorry you're inconvenienced because you came down here and you didn't know, but we've made an effort, a sincere effort.
Okay, so in terms of time, in terms of moving the conversation forward, what do we want to say about May at this point? And for Sycamore Park, do we want to continue this conversation next month? We don't have to decide anything yet. I was thinking another thing we could do is pull the Energy Commission in. We could reach out to them, see what they think. Helen made an interesting point about fossil fuels and climate change. And I know there's a lot of people that they specifically think about that with the Energy Commission. So it could be a really nice way to tie it together and see if they would be interested in helping cross promote that as well. And maybe that's something that we could touch base on for March. I don't think we have to I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is. We don't have to make a decision on this until April, really, right? Because that's the last time we can talk about it before May. So I think there's other things we can think about that. Also think about where the funding would come from and how much funding we need total to not mow for May, which sounds preposterous, but that's where we're at, right? So, and maybe that's another place for grant grant money or for talking to our entities as well. So what are your sort of thoughts on continuing this conversation next month? And then also, would anyone like to reach out to the Energy Commission or to someone else with another idea of a collaborator for this?
I
Yeah,
agree.
I'll reach out to Energy Conservation.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you, Helen.
I think that's a great place to stop, Carolyn, that we invite the Energy Commission or Energy Committee to join in, a representative and get their perspective. I have a feeling I know what it is. And then we make a decision in April, and I think that's enough time for Meredith to communicate to the various landscaping companies, because they're different ones for different parks. And I also hark back to Helen's comments, which last year there was a fair amount of drought during a good part of the summer. 80% of the state was in drought. So I think we have that to contend with. We just don't know exactly what the weather's going to be like. But 3 feet, I think is just a little of a bit of a stretch. And I actually went with the no mow May throughout the year. I cut my lawn less often, and it seemed to work out. And so I think it's, sometimes being a change agent, you take a little bit of slack for it, but I think we're all wanting to do the right thing. And if we determine that, this is how the direction to go, we just have to get our ducks in a row. How's that for a little rhyme?
I feel like maybe having lawn signs that can be handed out around Green Up Day, like if they're like on the table or around, would be helpful, just especially for just having people understand what's going on, why people are choosing not to mow their lawns.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And that's perfect timing.
I made a
Remember
little
that?
sign. It doesn't have any information. I don't know. It's on my computer. I'm zooming. I don't know if you can see. It's backwards, but
We can see it
oh,
forward.
it says no mow May if you
Yeah.
can. Anyway, for people to put in there, like for advertising, like, and then we could do a little blurb to explain why.
Another way to continue.
I can send that to you guys so you can see it, but
Maybe that's what we go to Need Repeats for some funding. I think they could get behind that and, do a certain one of, because some of those signs have the letter H, it's a wire, and then there's a, I don't know exactly what the best means is, but if
Yeah.
there's enough of those around town, and then we have some at the different sections, as Nancy was pointing out, now we've done a pretty good job of promoting the whole concept.
So I'm looking online right now. I know the Energy Committee meets every third Wednesday at 7 p.m. in town here. And Sally Burrell is the chair. So maybe that would be like if we wanted to, like Helen, right? If you wanted to maybe reach out and see that they could have a conversation with it that night.
Right.
It's just convenient time and they didn't have their meeting yet, right? So we can get on that. And then speaking of Sally Burrell, I reached out to her about the expo, and she said that she wasn't going to be on email until mid-February, and got a out of office reply from her. So I don't have anything to report for that. But she is the current chair of the Energy Commission, so that's who we should talk to about that.
Okay, great.
And Richard as well was on. Richard's the co-chair. Oh no, it changed. I swear she was. Anyhow, right now it says Richard Butts and Carl Engvall are the co-chairs. Richard was on the Conservation Commission, and he left for the Energy Commission, which was very sad because he was wonderful. But now he's doing a wonderful job for them. So I know he's usually interested in collaborating.
Are there emails on the town website? Great.
I
Okay,
think so.
I'll send them something tonight or tomorrow.
It still says that Sally is the chair.
I'll write all three.
So yeah.
Yeah.
And I have Richard's contact info because he was on our commission. I don't know if we have the info for Carl though, but I bet you get it from Sharon though if you wanted.
Okay.
Okay, so are we good on mowing? As we like to end at 7:30, and it's just after that, and I want to be. I know I'm not as good as Ken used to be at keeping the time, but I want to do my best. So that's a joke. Only Kristen understood.
I just want to make an observation, Carolyn, that this particular topic, it does bring out the passion in people, and it's probably the one topic where we've had the most diverse conversation from lots of contributions. So I'm excited about it, and I think that's wonderful. It's just a good way to have our commission, really rally around the topic.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And I think that, yeah, we'll see. I think we should think about funding sources. I mean, maybe there's something like Helen said, there was like a national movement. Maybe there's no Mo May grants you can apply for on some website or something. Like, I don't know. But like, if we're thinking about trying to fund this, like you said, trying to get signs out, wouldn't eat your pizza like that. Like, let's brainstorm about those things and come to, and talk to Energy Commission, come to our March meeting, really pull those things together, maybe decision in March, or if we have to get, last fact finding, we can push it to April, but it'd be great if we could decide for March. But we certainly have time for that.
And maybe one thing that we can mention, just like Zaley brought up the signs, maybe we pool funding, pool efforts, and that's how we, one of our modes of collaboration is the signage.
Yeah, I got the word out. I mean, usually I find that Energy Commission is very good at like promoting their events and things when they have them. So they're good at social media and stuff, whereas we don't usually do that.
So Carolyn, if you can send me the one email address
yeah.
have, and I have Sally's.
Okay.
I'll just send something to the two of them. Thanks.
Beautiful. Okay. Can we move to Green Up Day just for 5 minutes and then be done? Is that good? Okay. Green Up Day. I ordered bags. I got I emailed, remember how they shorted us on bags? And I was so upset last year. I emailed the head person at Peeler and I was like, we need bags. And she's like, okay. So so is that. Now I'm crazy, but whatever. So hopefully we'll get the bags. I got posters, gloves, prizes for the elementary school. So we should be all set with all the normal stuff. They said there could be shortages still for some like lab equipment like gloves, but they're gonna do their best to order those early and get them in time, hopefully. And then the idea was the possible Green Up Expo revival, possible Green Up Expo revival discussion. I emailed Richard and Sally from the Energy Commission because they had collaborated with me on it previously. I also included Ian Albinson, who at the time was a director of Bristol Core when we ran that. He is now on the Bristol Core committee, but is on the select board, so he stepped down from being the director. And I included Zaley and Nancy on that email. And the only response I got was Sally saying an auto reply that said she was out of email for 2 weeks. So I don't know. I could push that again. That was like 2 weeks ago I sent that email. So it fell on deaf ears a bit. So I don't know if that means people are, I don't want to pull teeth and make people do it if they're not ready for it. Maybe people are taking on enough as is with COVID and inflation and the world. So maybe it's not a good time for it. We might do something more just in-house, or we have like a lot of different flyers that we're passing out and that, or maybe we want to go ahead and do it, especially if Nancy and Zaley were fired up about the idea.
I wrote the director of Bristol Core, who had posted on Front Porch Forum, so that's where I got their email. I haven't heard back, but it was within the last week, so there's still, she might get back to me and be interested. So if she does write me, I'll write everyone right away and let you guys know.
Yeah.
And I'll pass it along. I'm happy to help in any way.
Yeah.
When is your baby due?
June. So I should be still good in May.
I mean, I had Andy very early, so you never know.
That would be like a month and 10 days early. So I'm hoping he's going to stay in there a little longer.
Nancy, do you have any ideas?
I'm up to help for anything. I was thinking, if the other groups don't want to, then we could maybe just focus it on NOMO and some of our initiatives And
Yeah,
then
if we just
we-
had a big group of just us, because often, some years it's just me sitting there with like a little table and I'm like, hi, want a bag, But if we had several tables we carried from Holly Hall, we all sat kind of in that front area by the cannon. We got some big maps out, like of town. People could say where they're gonna go, where they're gonna pick up garbage. We had Peace Garden flyers. We have the normal green up, watch out for tick safety stuff. We've got, other kinds of, what was the other thing, no stuff out, right? Like maybe we could just have like a fun vibe of all of us hanging out in the corner, making it look like a green up party. Maybe that's a first step for a in-person green up day.
Sounds like
Um,
the Peace
Add
Garden
the
people might
wildlife.
like to join with the table too, so.
yeah, maybe we just keep it more in-house. And, we could.
Well, we can add
do a
the
spin
wildlife
up.
tracking. Sorry.
Yeah, if we have a survey by then with Lauren's stuff, yeah, we'll have her stand out there. I mean, who knows? Like maybe we'll keep it with our group. We feel like we have more than usual levels of wanting to outreach to people. So maybe we'll just keep it as a Conservation Commission event. We'll hang up some bags. I'll see if Ian can help me with those sandwich boards again. I think Bristol Core has those. And he helped me set those up in the intersection. We can see if I mean, my go-to is always Ian, but Ian or Meredith could help us get the tables out of Holly Hall, and we could, if we have a code, if it's okay if we go in and take the tables, we have the code, we're here, obviously, but we just asked them if we could use the infrastructure that way. In past years, they had free coffee they would brew, but I don't know if Green Up Day is doing free coffee anymore. I know, Jono, you asked the bank one time for money. Maybe we could see if you could use your persuasive skills to get us some bags of coffee or supplies. I don't know. But we can maybe just keep it among us, unless there were other people we could specifically tap for small tasks, maybe. What are your thoughts about that? Thoughts are nodding along. Okay, great. Okay, cool. So that sounds good. So we'll plan for just a bigger than usual Conservation Green Up Day, but not a full expo.
Okay,
That
and I'll
sounds
let you guys know immediately if Bristol Core gets back to me too, so.
Great.
If they want to join, cool.
Yeah, that sounds great. And maybe since I sent the email out, they haven't had their monthly meeting yet for either. So maybe it's like government moves slowly, as we know. So
How does
Okay,
one
great.
apply for a Neat Repeats grant?
I think you
Because-
contact them and then they send probably a form that you would just print out, and then they'll give you the timeline and you submit, and within a month, I think you might hear back.
Because I'm thinking, Nancy, that maybe we want to do that for signage for No Mo May.
That's what I was just saying. So yeah,
Right. Okay. Good.
It also
Yeah,
might be good
'cause we'll
timing
want the
because I
signs
think,
no matter what,
I
right?
think,
Yeah.
I think they have less probably requests maybe during this time of year than, start of spring. So it could be smart to get something in sooner than later.
Okay.
Right. And I think we'll want the no-mow signs no matter what shakes out with what park or what the mowing plan. We'll want signs to give to the community either way on Green Up Day, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a win no matter what.
Right.
And honestly, there could be templates online. There could be
There are.
something. I mean, we might be able to like loop into a bigger conversation on NOMO and try to get supplies somehow. I have no idea.
Okay. So Nancy, let's just be in touch by email and divvy that up. I think
Sounds
it's like 2 tasks, but we can talk about it. Great.
That sounds perfect. Okay. Any other last comments before we make a motion?
It sounds like, if I remember, Kristen was saying that sometimes there had been a work day in some part of the Green Up Day, but it sounds like we've got quite a bit of things to manage, and also it's just a little too busy of a day. So we, as you suggested, that next meeting we'll start to think about the work days, and we might also want to think about taking advantage of spring break.
I put that in my notes. I said for
Yeah.
next week or next month, we'll get a calendar out. We'll schedule Eagle Park workday possibly in May. I mean, we did that one where we put our meeting at the same time. So we had our meeting and there was mulching, but then it rained, but we tried, right? And so we could do something like that maybe, or maybe Sycamore, maybe in April with with Boy Scouts, whatever that means. And then I've already forgotten what my note means. And then, or that was the rec department's idea, something with getting a group out there during spring break. So that's a possibility, or we can push it off into summer. It was very hot. We did it last time. I went swimming in the river in our gym shoes afterwards last time. So a little earlier in the year might be nice. Although who knows about the perennial garden? Helen, you know more about that and the times, you know. Okay.
Yeah, let's do that scheduling next meeting. That's good.
We'll do that next meeting. So come with a calendar in your mind or near you. Okay, great. And that is everything for our meeting. It's a little late, but I tried my best. So would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Nancy made a motion. Anyone like to second it? Helen's going to second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion is adjourned. The meeting is adjourned. Goodbye. We'll see you next month. Thank you for coming. and all your
Noelle, I
help.
hope you liked it. I hope you come back.
Yeah, it was hard not to
Don't
be
let
able to
people-
talk. It was hard not to be able to have any talk. I wanted to jump in several times, but I'm not supposed to yet. So, yeah, it was fun. I hope to see you guys again.
Fantastic.
Great, great. That sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Great meeting.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.